Dana, welcome to CMO Pulse. I'm so excited to have you. Dana Marineau, CMO for Rakuten. Welcome to the show.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
How are you, Dana? What's been going on? Tell me a little bit about what it's been like to be at Rakuten, as the world has certainly been shopping a lot more digitally and definitely more online.
Yes, for sure. And as you can see, I'm very happy to be in my office today.
Cool. And it's not just a moving background.
No, not a virtual background, not my bedroom. It is actually the Rakuten office in San Francisco. We started coming back a few days a week in August. And I have to say, I've loved every second of it. We are, trying to inspire and motivate and remind people what is fun about the office. So, we're working a little bit of a work from home hybrid to come to the office when you're comfortable. So that certainly has been fun. I certainly have been meeting a bunch of new people I'd never met before since I started at Rakuten during the pandemic, June of 2020. So it's certainly been amazing for me to meet some teammates and other Rakuten friends that I had not yet met. So that's been really amazing.
So we talked a little bit about that, and I think it's worth touching on. So how do you, make the decision to come on board when you haven't had a chance to really get a sense, get a vibe, meet people in person, number one, and then number two, how do you come into a new role that is as big as yours and build trust, build relationships? Can you talk a little bit about what that was like for you?
Sure. I will say an incredible learning experience for me the last 20 months, starting a new job in the middle of a global pandemic, building a team during that time when all of us are working from home. Certainly not something I'd ever done before, I'll tell you that. So, I'll answer your first question first, which is, how did I decide to come to Rakuten? I had been at Electronic Arts for 15 years, grew up there. And then I was at Credit Karma, which we sold to Intuit for 3 years. And I loved that. And the Rakuten opportunity came to me actually just as lockdown was a thing in April of 2020. And I have to say, I am a marketer who loves brands that put the member at the center. So EA, players at the center, Credit Karma, members at the center, and Rakuten the same. And, the pandemic, of course, just asked us to do online shopping in just a savvier, smarter way. And I was just fascinated by how e-commerce was shifting so quickly when everyone suddenly could not go into stores and suddenly was shopping online. And I thought this seems like an amazing opportunity. And as we can talk about, the Rakuten brand is unknown in the US. And so I'm a builder. I'm a person who also have said, I've seen the Rakuten name on the Warriors jersey. I've seen the Rakuten name on the Barcelona jersey. I'm a European football fan also, and thought, I've seen that name. I've seen that logo. No one knows what it is. There's something fun to go do there. So that's part of why. And I met the executives, of course, on Zoom and interviewed over Zoom and just fell in love with them. And I continue to adore them today. And it's been a really extraordinary experience to actually finally be in the room with them as we are today. So it was just, the timing worked out amazingly. I left Credit Karma and Rakuten, called, and here I am 20 months later, loving it. But I will say building and creating culture in a new team over Zoom is not easy. And I pride myself as an in-person leader. I am very good at inspiring and motivating, especially creative people, in the room, in the moment, looking at creative, massaging creative, talking about, leadership and leadership ideas. And so having to transfer those skills that I've honed over the last 25 years to video conference took some learning. Not easy. We came up with a bunch of ideas to try to create and maintain culture and trust over Zoom. I'll give you two of them. One was the very first week I started, and I still do this now. Once a week, we do what's called Coffee with Dana. So the idea is, you go to the Starbucks with someone and you stand in line. You walk to the kitchen every day and grab a string cheese. You run into someone in the hallway. Those organic conversations can't do that when you're on Zoom. And so we created Coffee with Dana. I did it every Tuesday morning at 8:30. And we invited people from all over the company, people who were on my team, not on my team, I've met before, never met before. And we did a 30-minute just get to know you. We talked about work things. We talked about personal things. We played red light, green light. We played games to help pull out of people what is really going on. I had many tears, many laughs, people sharing what show they're binging, sharing what they're struggling with at work, all the good, all the bad, all the ugly. And I did it every Tuesday morning. Still now. And now we're in the office. So sometimes there's this funny thing is, hey, I thought coffee with Dana. I'm like, yeah, it's here in the office. Let's go to the kitchen. Right. So yeah, let's have some. So, but that was one way. I mean, certainly a way I got to meet and learn all the different teams and all the different people, and for them to get exposure to me and meet me for the first time. So we did that, I would say 8 to 12 people, different people every Tuesday for 20 months. And so that was one way to get to know people, that we just tried to maintain or hold some culture when you couldn't do what you and I used to call water cooler moment. That doesn't exist, right? But that concept we started creating, at least on Tuesdays with me and with our leaders. So another one we did, which you'll laugh about, is we still do this every Wednesday on our Slack channel, the marketing team Slack channel. It's called Corn Theme instead of Corn Theme. And we elect someone to come up with a crazy question. It could be, what's your favorite show you're binging? What's your favorite book from when you were a kid? Where do you want to travel to next? Where did you last travel? I mean, it is anything. And it gets the entire team engaged, and it's a great get to know you, right? Because that's my favorite color, right? So it's a great way to do that, to create culture, which when you're not all together is really important. So we've been working on it. And now there's this hybrid thing of some people are here in the office, some people are still at home, some people are in a different office. So trying to rebalance what I would call a new normal of some people are in person and some people are not.
Yeah, I love it. So a follow-on question to that. So this is your first time as CMO, is that correct?
It is.
Okay. So now we're leveling up again, right? So you're joining this company in the middle of the pandemic. How did you, Dana, prepare to be CMO for the first time? Because it's a huge title, it's a huge responsibility. To your point, massive brand, with a lot of, a huge sort of headroom as far as brand awareness and other sorts of things. Yeah. What was your personal prep to step into the role for the CMO? Let's step into the role of CMO for the first time. And how did you do at prepping for what you faced as soon as you made contact with the real scenario?
That is a very good question. I will say, I'm going to go off on a tangent and get back to you in a minute, which is, I think the role of CMO is shifting and evolving. And so I'm going to answer your question about how I prepared for that by shifting and evolving my own skills and who I am in my DNA. So I think there was a long time when the concept of a CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, marketing took one of two lanes. You were either in your DNA, a brand and creative storyteller as a marketer, or you're a growth performance marketer. And they're on completely opposite sides of the spectrum of a chief marketing officer. And so the answer to your question is, how I have been and did prepare for this job is to make sure that I was well-versed, well-skilled, well-educated in all the sides and spectrum of marketing. I am a marketer who's grew up in brand and creative. That is my DNA, a storyteller. And I had to learn very quickly. Now, thankfully, I went to, after EA, when we started to learn that, I went to Credit Karma, where I will say, swooped all the way over on the pendulum to growth and performance, metrics. Whereas EA, at least my first, let's call it 10 years, was mostly about building brands. And so I will say I prepared, thankfully, by taking that job at Credit Karma, that taught me, truly educated me in the other side of the spectrum, which is growth and performance. Now, what I will say to you is, now that I'm in the job, I'm going to say that that marketing M of Chief Marketing Officer, to me, the way I define that M is meaningful and measurable. And what I mean by that is, you actually can't just be good at one or the other. You can't have a brand or a company that is one or the other. What we've learned is, to be a great CMO, to be a great brand, you have to be great at both. So meaningful and measurable. You have to have storytelling that has meaning, that inspires. And then you have to understand and measure the impact of those experiences. So that's how I think about my growth, and the way I've stepped into the role is being thoughtful and clear that both are important.
I love that. I mean, I think so much conversation around marketing is sort of, are you more of this or are you more of that? And I think the last, 2 years, give or take, has really proven that you can't truly be one without the other, particularly in this digital, always on world. Okay, so you've joined, you've started the role, you're doing Coffee with Dana, which also, by the way, sounds a little chief people-y as well, right? Like there's a people element to it, which is fabulous. But people need to know you and all of that good stuff. What does your role look like now? How do you think about your marketing mix as well as just your share of attention? Like, what goes into making sure that you're focusing on the right things in a very fast changing space with, if you watch the news, it's like it's not slowing down, right? So how do you kind of keep that in check?
Well, the people part, actually, that you've just noted is very interesting. I remarked to someone the other day that sometimes on top of my marketing responsibilities, I feel like I'm a chief culture officer, right? Because this new normal of all of us working from home and working and collaborating and being very productive, no doubt, at home, you lose culture. So there's a lot of benefits, of course, about working from home. We've proven that we can do it, but you absolutely lose the culture of a team. You lose the culture of a company. And so I will tell you, my primary focus has been the last 18 months, while of course on the marketing campaign and of course on evolving our brand, which I'm happy to talk to you about, on the people, developing people, developing our leaders, teaching our leaders how to be a leader and a manager in a time like this when you're not in the room with someone, and how to watch for signals that someone is or isn't doing well when you actually don't see them in the hallway like you normally would. And so I do spend a lot of time on our teams, on our people, and developing and creating culture. And on the side, reminding people actually how fun it can be and is to be in the office. I think when you're gone for a year and a half, you forget. It actually is super convenient not to commute, super convenient to pick up your kid at school, super convenient to wear yoga pants and flip-flops and not get dressed up or put on makeup. I mean, I think people really, there are things about it. Do your laundry while you're in a meeting. There are things that are great, very convenient. But unfortunately, I think people have forgotten what was fun about the office, the meetings, the camaraderie, the laughs, the hallway meetings where you make a decision because you run into your manager's manager, whatever it is, reminding people that there are people who are your friends, people that you love to be with. And we have forgotten that. So one of the things I'm doing right now, on top of working with the team to evolve our brand into the future, is reminding people what it's like to be together, hoping and inspiring to get them back into the office, which is harder than you think, and just really trying to remind and set culture when it's been lost for a year and a half.
Yeah, it's interesting. That reminds me, I can't remember, it's come up in quite a few interviews now, but many CMOs feeling like they're more and more being called upon or rising to sort of becoming the connective tissue across the company. Because a lot of, one part of marketing is also marketing to your own people.
Oh, yeah.
And or, you have employee engagement and all of that good stuff.
Well, that is part of our employer brand marketing. We are the storytellers. We are the copywriters. We are the fun, right? And so it has come upon us to make sure that people are reminded of the stories we tell in our house, not just externally, right? When you are developing a brand, I always say you have to believe the words and believe who you are inside the house before you can share them outside the house. And so that is very much coming true today, is reminding people the culture of our company and who we are. And I think I've mentioned to you, Rakuten means optimism in Japanese, and reminding people, putting forward that positivity, that joy, that optimism, both in the building and in our marketing.
Yeah, I love that. So you talked about outside the building. So let's go there for a second. Tell me a little bit about what your process or what your experience was in keeping the pulse on your customers and putting them first as the world was and arguably is going through this massive change? Like, how did you do that? How do you still do that? And what are some of the insights that have really been driving some of your decision making?
Great question. One thing about the pandemic that was a benefit for us at Rakuten, of course, is that people did stop going into stores and had to buy things online, right? So e-commerce exploded. So I certainly am not going to complain about that, right? So I don't love the global pandemic, but from a business perspective, people are shopping online. And so to your question, our job was to help people be able to shop and discover on Rakuten, be able to enable our members, our new members, our future members to shop in a way that made them feel smart and savvy. And by the way, you're buying toilet paper at Target, you're buying lipstick at Sephora, you're buying your son new shoes for school. Why wouldn't you get cash back when you're buying those things anyway? Reminding people. So the strategy, of course, is reminding people that actually shopping can be rewarding, shopping can be joyful. And all we are doing is enabling that behavior and showing you how you can discover new brands and new things that you didn't even know that you needed, right? One of the things we talk about is how often, you go to Target, for example, and you have one item that you're there for. And yet somehow when you leave with 12 to 15 items, right? That happens naturally. And so we hope to create that sense at Rakuten as you're there, you buy some shoes from Adidas and then you think to yourself, oh, actually, I'm out of my shampoo. I'll get that too. Oh, actually, my son needs some new shin guards, whatever it is, right? So we hope to discover and have members discover how shopping can be joyful when you are getting cash back on every single purchase. So that certainly has been a benefit. And, one thing I'll say is for me, the concept of authenticity is something I talk about a lot with our teams. And we've been talking about this idea of we are solving, not selling, which is an interesting switch in the way you think about what we do as marketers. We want to solve what it is that you need. We don't want to sell things to you. So that has been a philosophy we've talked about a lot in the way we communicate with our members. We have evolved our brand voice, our personality, and the way we talk with our members, to our members, is something that we've been really refining around an authentic voice, and not you get the email and we're constantly selling to you. We don't want that to be. We want to only give you ideas and show you relevant stores, relevant brands that you've put forward as, hey, yes, I have a pet and we are going to show you all the stores, all the pet food and pet clothing, pet bowls stores that we have that are at a particularly high cash back rate this week. We try to give relevant, authentic experiences.
And how do you think about that as you consider sort of your marketing or cross-channel mix? And I know you've done some really big things on television recently. There's obviously some huge digital and we see what you do on social, but I'd love to hear just how you think about that sort of omni-channel experience.
Excellent question, because one very fascinating thing about Rakuten is, as I was saying, people have heard of Rakuten. People have seen the logo. People have seen it on the Warriors jersey, the Barcelona jersey. So we don't have an awareness problem as we marketers would normally talk about it. People are aware of that word. The thing is, though, they don't know what it is. So they've seen it. They don't know what it is. So it's not a very traditional unaided and aided awareness issue, because it's different than what we are used to. So what we talk about, to your question about marketing mixes, back when I was saying meaningful and measurable, we have a very robust media mix that is full of big brand moments, like we're going to put our television spot on Thanksgiving Day football and the Macy's Day Parade, and we're going to be on the Warriors jersey, and everyone sees that. And we're going to have very high performing growth assets that educate. We're going to do both. And so the answer to your question is we have a very balanced mix of what I would call brand moments for people to see and be inspired. And then, oh, I don't really get it. Let me understand how it works. A balanced mix of both. And as I was saying before, sometimes people swing too far one way and you miss the entirety of the funnel. So we really work hard to make sure we have a good mix of both across all of our marketing, across the whole year, by the way.
And how do you see the role of social media channels within that? Like, do you have a slightly different approach, or how do they work for you?
Well, it's funny because social is the one place that balances brand and performance in the same channel, right? So you can go hard on Facebook or on Instagram or on Twitter with very specific growth, educational, direct assets that explain. You also could have a pretty big brand presence on any of those channels I just named. And so actually, social is a really important part, both the organic and the paid, right? We do a really great work of having our own Rakuten channels that we own, of course, our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter, our whatever it is, where we put forward our storytelling in a very funny, cheeky, I think, quite amusing way to help people understand who we are and the stories we want to tell. And then, of course, we have paid social, where we go pretty rigorous targeting of, are we targeting luxury buyers? Are we targeting people who've purchased at Macy's before? I mean, very specific targeting. So social actually does a lot of good work for us on both sides of that spectrum.
As you think about 2022, so you've done a lot of foundational work, you're doing a lot of stuff with the team, your team's now coming back. What do you think, what are some of the challenges ahead? Like, what are you excited to tackle in the new year and beyond?
What am I excited to tackle? Well, of course, we always have some, interesting, fun campaigns in the works. So I will tell you, I'm very excited about some of the things we have coming up in first quarter. We also, I hope you've seen, we just upgraded and up-leveled our visual identity. So both our marketing and our product looks and feels beautiful and has crisp new imagery, crisp new patterns, new fonts, new typography. We've upgraded our visual ID, and seeing that now come to life in market has been really special for all of us, that we've been very excited about. And particularly, new copywriters, new copywriting, telling the story of Rakuten in a way that just makes you smile. So I'm very excited to see that come to life. I also am excited for our teams to be together again, really for the first time more consistently in 2022. We're still working through our return to office approach. And again, sometimes people will be at home, sometimes people will be here in the office, but I get excited. Actually, one of my leaders makes fun of me because every time we're in the office together, I make them take a picture. And she was like, okay, this is like the 8th time we've been together. Like, do we have to take a picture every time? And I'm like, yes, we're going to take a picture until it's normal. Right. So I continue to look forward to that. And, we have a lot to do in 2022. The concept of online shopping, that is not going away. Thank goodness, right? So, but our product can get better. We can get better. There's so many things so many features we hope to add both on the consumer side, the member side, and the merchant side, right? To help them target our members in more interesting, more personalized ways, and our members helping them discover new brands and putting relevant stores in front of them. So we have a lot to do. We certainly are not finished. We have work to do there.
Oh, I love that. So a couple of quick ones specifically for you. What was the first brand that ever made a big impact on you? And does that brand impact how you are as a marketer today?
Well, Nike. It has to be Nike. When I was a little girl, there was these things called magazines. And inside magazines, there were these things called print ads, right? Remember that? And I will say, when I was a kid, the print ads I would put up on my wall. And Nike had what I would call very inspirational messaging and copywriting for athletes. And I don't know that I considered myself an athlete. I mean, I played tennis in junior high and high school, but I was always inspired by the language they used, and particularly their language towards girls and women, which was different. And so still today, Nike, of course, continues to inspire me. I love brands that have a point of view. And even if it's controversial, I always love it and feel proud when a brand goes out there and says, this is how we feel about blank. So in Nike's case, this is how we feel about Black Lives Matter. This is how we feel about voting rights, whatever it is. I love when brands stand behind their values. So as a kid, I was inspired by the copywriting and the inspiration. Now I am very inspired by the way they are willing to lose customers, willing to lose people buying shoes because they stand for something. And I love that. And I'm always encouraging us to stand for stuff.
Yeah, I really, that's a wonderfully put point. I think so much of the perspective around purpose and POV used to be just don't alienate anyone.
Right.
Now it's almost like you need to decide who you're willing to alienate in order to truly win with the audience that, that is aligned with you or that matters to you.
That's right. And listen, I am not suggesting this is not delicate, that this is not hard, that it isn't controversial, and it takes many a meeting to agree on those things. But I always appreciate when a brand is willing to say, you know what, we don't like that. Or, you know what, we support this. And that is hard to do. And I always appreciate when brands can do it.
What is the best leadership advice you ever received?
Great one. So I had my first boss at EA. Her name is Carolyn Feinstein. When I probably had been there maybe a year, and she had an all hands meeting for all of marketing. She was the head of marketing. And she said something that was in a lot of ways kind of an off the cuff comment about leadership, but it is something that has stuck with me. So this is now like 27 years ago. And I hope to lead this way. I believe that I do, but it has stuck with me, which is she said in a meeting, you don't work for me, I work for you. And what she meant as a leader, what she meant by that was my only job is to empower you, to support you, and to unblock anything in your way. And I loved that then in the way, and I love it now. And I say it often because my only job as a leader is to help empower and support and unblock. And that is all I intend to do. So that concept of, no, you don't work for me, I work for you, I love and have always loved. And I hope is true. I hope people who have worked on my teams believe that.
Last one for you. If you could go back to the start of your career and offer yourself one piece of advice, what would that advice be?
One piece of advice. I would say, and this is a little cliche-y, but true, the concept of expect the unexpected, I think is what I would have told myself is when I was younger, I had myself on a path. I knew exactly what I wanted to be, who I wanted to be, where I would go to school, what job I would take, when I would get married, when I would have kids, right? Like I was that person. And I clearly, really none of those things were true. And the way I dealt with those things and handled those things and worked through those things, like sometimes very stressful, sometimes okay. But the advice I would give myself is not to define a clear path, certainly in my career, that I thought I had to go. So an example of that is I grew up assuming and thinking I had to have an MBA. I had to go to business school. Both my parents went to business school. I will go to business school. And then it turned out when it was time for me to go to business school, I was loving my job so much. And my boss, same woman, Carolyn, had just promoted me. And I was loving what I was doing and I didn't want to go. And I was just wrecked with, this is off my path, right? So the idea is the path isn't always straight to getting to where you need and belong. And certainly I am like that myself. I never would have told you I would have been in video games, then finance, now retail. I never would have been able to tell you that. So I guess the moral of that story is the path doesn't have to be straight and linear for you to get where you need to be and where you belong.
Absolutely love that. Dana, we're going to hold it there. This has been such an incredible conversation. I cannot wait to hear how 2022 kicks off and to hear more about your CMO, chief people, chief connective tissue pieces. But there's just so much great advice in there and so much boldness that I really look forward to recapping for everybody. So thank you so much for joining and for being so open with me.
Thank you for having me. I'd love to do it again. This was really fun.